This is from Beata. Okay. Path or reflection? A question has come to my mind after reading some responses. An identity of who I used to be has dissolved quite a bit. I don't know who I am anymore. Things that I used to like fell off. I am floating through days. Not only am I aware of my ego, but egos of other people I interact with. It feels draining at times. It feels like something I can't be. It feels like sometimes I can't be my authentic self and need to play a role society requires. The question is this path on the journey that we go through, is this a path on the journey that we go through, or simply a reflection of showing me that I am not resonating or connecting with myself? If so, how do I connect with myself or find areas of where I am disconnected with myself? I do know that everything is a reflection of me, so I sense that I am disconnected from myself. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts, Joe?
Um, well, initially, I think it's just very, very normal to feel different in so many ways with not identifying with this thing that you thought that you were for a long time, and then it becomes different or unrecognizable after, doing a lot of processing or um, having some insights and things change. Um, I mean that will just happen continually, on the path because uh, you're seeing more of what's there, and that's going to sort of redefine the thing that you think of as yourself. And then, especially if there's like some big shifts, that's going to be quite unrecognizable from what you've been used to for so long. Um, so I think my initial reaction is just that that's completely normal and expected. Um, and then floating through days. Yeah, and then becoming aware of other people's egos, I think it becomes more evident, the more that you look at yourself of what that is in other people as well, because your ego relates to the perceived ego in others. That's
Yeah.
the way that it operates. So I guess as you become more and more aware of your own ego, you can see what it is, you can sort of see it more for what it is rather than being identified with it all of the time. You can see as you see more of that, you'll see more of what it is interacting with in others as well.
Yeah. So of course, yeah, I agree. It's like completely normal. And one thing that I was going to say is, so you said I'm floating through days. So I'm guessing it's like you don't know what to do. You don't have the interests that you used to have could be gone. And one thing that I think is useful to say is that the deeper that you awaken, there's this weird thing that happens, which is um, the ability to slowly just enjoy doing absolutely nothing. And that's what can often be very confusing and can be interpreted as I don't know what to do anymore, or I don't have any those same interests. And so what do I do with myself? And yeah, there are moments to do things, but sometimes you can literally just look out the window or just something like that, go on a walk, and you're not actually doing anything. You're not producing anything. You're not doing anything useful except just maybe enjoying your vision, what you're looking at, what you're hearing. And so I think that by saying that, then you might be like, oh, sometimes I was trying to fill this moment thinking that I always have to be doing and doing, but I don't feel like doing those things. And so those are the moments that maybe you can just enjoy the emptiness of being able to just experience your senses. And it can be if you sit, let's say, in your living room doing nothing and you're just looking at your living room for like 10 minutes or even 5 minutes, that can be a good practice because maybe even in 5 minutes you'll feel something, some anxiety, because it seems like our whole body is like programmed to think that doing this sort of thing, like sitting down and doing nothing, is wrong. So it's like immediately you can get very anxious, and so that's just, another experience that you can have. And there's just one more thing that I'm trying to remember. Well, I was just going to say, like you said, I'm aware of my ego, but the egos of other people I interact with. I just wanted to say that, if somebody's very angry, you can just see because you can physically see it, right? But just wanted to stress that you can never perceive the ego of another person, not directly. So whatever it is that you're seeing and feeling in your body is only ever your ego. So this can get a little bit confusing and tricky. So there was one example that I just thought of, which is, let's say that you're speaking to someone and there's a possibility, but it's not very obvious that they're being arrogant or they're trying to show off. But it's not very obvious. They're not, doing it on purpose. It seems. And then let's say that in your mind, you feel this kind of like this person is so arrogant, but there's this kind of feeling, there's an experience happening within you. That's an example of you cannot directly experience their ego. Whether they're being arrogant or they're not being arrogant, that experience only is happening inside of them. Whatever you feel in you cannot be another person. It's literally impossible. So I think it's interesting to kind of play with that and see certain times maybe if there's judgment. Remember, there's nothing wrong with judging, if it's in your mind, especially. But notice if there's a lot of deep judgment for people. And then sometimes try to see if you think that it's about them. Like, oh, I'm sure they're doing this. And then pull back and realize this is all just happening within you. Right? It's just I think a good practice.
Yeah, I was just going to add on the point of it feels like sometimes I can't be my authentic self. I need to play a role society requires. Um, I think you can become a lot more disillusioned with what society does demand of you because it demands generally an egoic acting role. So, the less you're uh, connecting or resonating with what you once were like or once you were di doing, um, that's very normal as well to see like, oh, I don't relate to this persona and this role within society anymore. I mean that will be the case because society, that's how society is. So we sort of have to sometimes step into these roles that it does demand of us. But the key thing is that you will identify less and less with those roles, and some you might not be able to do anymore because it's just not important to you anymore. And also to Steve's point about not doing the things that you once did, I think that can freak our egos out a bit because, especially in my own experience, things like motivation, um, ambition, these things just declined until they evaporated and disappeared completely. And if your ego is very much attached to those sorts of things, it can be like, oh, I should be doing these things. I associate being productive and motivated and ambitious and with my job or these things is like unquestionably good. Whereas as you go further, you'll see that they amount to nothing. That there's no ambition to fill. There's no purpose to be lived. There's just the enjoyment of what's happening. But I think it's you can very much accept some resistance to that because the ego, of course, it loves to be productive. It loves to do things and be recognized for doing them. Um, so yeah, for that point.
What you said about ambition, I can almost hear the ego's response to that, which is like, oh, if you don't have ambition, then you don't want to live anymore, right? You
Yeah,
don't want to do anything,
ambition,
right?
purpose,
Purpose.
meaning. Yeah, purpose is the biggest one.
It can sound odd, so I want to clarify this. So if I were to say I have no purpose and I have no ambition and I have no meaning in my life, that sounds very depressing. That sounds very, it doesn't sound good. But if you don't have ambition, it doesn't mean that you don't want to live, right? It's like Ambition is actually not just desire, a desire. For example, I desire to go for a walk. That will exist even in enlightenment, right? If you could call that a desire. I want to do this, I want to do that. Ambition is this sickness where it feels like yearning and you're going after something in a very, I don't know what the word would be, a very desperate way, actually. And then people call it, I'm very ambitious and I want to be a very successful person. But when there is this, like, I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to get to this level, then finally, when they kill themselves, working and working to get at this level, well, what happens is the ego is never satisfied. And so they're going to create a new goal, a new, thing that they have to reach, and it never stops. And
Yeah.
so that's what ambition is. So you could literally not have this ambition and still have a business. It's just that you don't have this relationship with it. If it's not growing, like you're gonna rip your hair out, and this is, oh, it's an obsession. That's a good word. Ambition and obsession is sort of like the same thing. Um, oh, you want to say something?
It's also like a very clear declaration of now, right now is not enough. Like
Yeah,
the simple, whatever's going on right now is not enough and it has to change. And that's almost never the case. Usually right now it's just fine. Um, but it's one of, I think, society's biggest egoic tricks that most people buy into is that like being ambitious is good. And you can really reduce it to everything that Steve just said. And think like what is wrong with the here and now. And but again, the ego won't like that. And what you have to remember is, again, what Steve said is that it doesn't mean that those things can still be done. You can still have a business, but your relation to it completely changes. It's more about outcomes don't dictate your well-being. It's
yeah,
like you're almost uh, uh, gifted this state of I don't mind. I don't mind the outcome. You just adapt to what happens rather than I must steer this in this ever growing upward trajectory.
yeah. And the final thing I want to say is, so it says, it feels like sometimes I can't be my authentic self and need to play a role society requires. So this is kind of funny because what most people mean by this is, I've realized that there's a deeper, like, there's a higher self or whatever you want to call it. There's a deeper experience. And when I go out in the world and talk to people who are not awakening, I kind of have to tiptoe around them. I can't say this, I can't say that. And then people think that that's your authentic self. And in reality, I would say that to actually be 100% authentic, you'd have to be enlightened and you'd have to have felt all of the pain in the psyche to be actually 100% authentic at all moments. And I say that because when we are reluctant to play a role, our mind is filled with roles, is just another way to say ego parts. So, if there's the angry one and the jealous one, these are, you could call roles. They don't really exist, right? They're these characters. And so it can actually be a powerful practice in those moments when you're around people that are not awakening. It's very obvious to you. You can't speak to them about this stuff. And then you step into the character that is exactly like them. That's what you don't want to be. So some people, they start learning about all this spiritual stuff, like timelines and all this stuff, and then they think that they have all this like very special knowledge. And when they speak to the guy on the street or somebody like, making their coffee that is not having that experience, they think, oh, this person doesn't get it at all, right? I can't talk to them about this, and so I have to be fake. Actually, that's not true. The the reason why we want to share that stuff is also coming from the ego. Almost like this is the only worthwhile conversation is to talk about spirituality. And if this human that's right in front of me wants to talk about the weather or the news, even, right? In spirituality, it's like, oh, I don't watch the news anymore. And somebody's telling you about the news. That is a moment for you to try to embody another part of your ego that you're rejecting. which is I'm exactly like this person. I'm not just this spiritual, special being. So why don't I pretend? And you could call it pretending. And you talk to that person, and what your ego doesn't want is for them to think that you're not special. So it's almost like you want them to know that you're smarter, you're deeper. Now, if you just talk about the news, pretending that you like talking about the news, that's what the ego doesn't want. For you to be equal to this person that the ego thinks is inferior. Oh, this person is not awake. So I think that it can be very useful to do that sort of thing, to enter that same analogy that I keep saying, to be an actor. If you can be an actor and go into that role, it can be very beneficial.
Yeah, and you can see the level of judgment that's there in you in those moments, whereas like this person is not on my level and I judge them for it.
Yeah, they're ordinary, but I'm special somehow.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to be ordinary. Um, okay.